Hello, I'm John Denny with the Telos Corporation, and I'm here to bring you another episode of Xacta Tidbits. In this episode of Xacta Tidbits, we're going to be talking about how to understand the different major task status indicators. Within Xacta, there are several task status indicators to help you know what's going on with your major tasks. A lot of times people email the front door or ask us questions in our training sessions about what's going on with their project. Where's my project at? What is it waiting on for approval? What major tasks should I be working on? All of these questions are going to be answered in this episode. But before we can take a look within Xacta 360 to see all of these different task status indicators, we need to have a brief discussion on which task status indicators there are and what they all mean. So without further ado, let's take a look at what each of these different task status indicators are. There are several major task status indicators within Xacta 360. The first is active, meaning the task is incomplete and work is still being done in its sub-process steps. Once you have worked through all of the sub-process steps, you will then submit your major task for approval. This means the task has been submitted for review to an approval authority. Once you have submitted a major task for approval, all of these sub-process steps are now locked and can no longer be edited. Similar to submitted for approval is approving. This means that that major task has more than one approval authority. In other words, a major task may have an ISM and PM that must approve the task first, and then an AO or DAO must approve the task second. When you see the word approving as a task status indicator, this just simply means the same as submitted for approval. You are just waiting for a review by an approval authority. During approving, all of your sub-process steps are also locked and can no longer be edited. The next major task status indicator is disabled. That means that the task has not met the prerequisites that it needs in order to open up. This could mean that a previous major task would need to be completed first before this major task opens up, or it could mean that this particular task was not opened up because of selections that were made in previous process steps. A classic example of this would be for the PIA task. In previous process steps, if there was no indication or no check marks made by the fact that your project may collect privacy information, then this task will always be disabled. The last major task status indicator would be complete. When a major task has been completed, that means that all of the approval authorities have approved the task. The task will then be locked and none of its sub-process steps will be allowed to be edited. So as a reminder, your submitted for approval, approving, disabled, and complete are all locked and cannot be edited. So when you see a major task status indicator of submitted for approval, approving, disabled, or complete, your sub-process steps are locked and they cannot be edited. Let's take a little bit more of a deeper dive into the submitted for approval task status indicator. As a reminder, this means that the task has been submitted for review to an approval authority. Within Xacta 360, we can see here that the critical control implementation major task has been submitted for approval. It is now currently waiting for an information system security engineer or a project manager to approve this task. we notice that there are some numbers next to the ISI and PM. This is the number of days that are remaining for the approval. In this scenario, the Critical Control Implementation Major Task has a 90-day approval window. Your ISI or PM have 90 days in which to approve this major task. As a note, the number of days remaining for approval will count down within Xacta 360. If it reaches 0, it will then turn into a negative number and the highlighting behind it will turn red, indicating that the approval suspense was not met. So again, the days will count down past 0 into negative numbers, indicating the number of days that it has gone past the approval suspense. Let's take a look at what all of this looks like inside of Xacta 360. Inside of Xacta 360, I'm just going to go ahead and click on my Xacta Tidbits project. Inside of my Xacta Tidbits project, I'm presented with my active tasks. By default, your view status is Show Active. If you would like to see all of your tasks, you merely need to use the drop-down and select Show All. Now we can see all of our tasks within our Xacta Tidbits project. As we can see, some of the task status indicators underneath the status column, some of the tasks are complete, some are active, while some are disabled. As a reminder, any major task that is set to a status of complete, the process steps contained within that task are locked and can no longer be edited. We can verify this by clicking on the security categorization and clicking on any of the sub-process tasks within here, such as system environment. We're presented with this page cannot be edited because this task is in a read-only state. Again, this is because the major task is complete and all the sub-process steps that are listed on the left-hand side are all locked now. Let's go back out to our tasks and let's look at our active tasks again. Here we see that we have Information System Description, PIA Gathering, and Critical Control Implementation. If you're not seeing your task statuses, in other words, your status indicators, you merely need to click your View Options. Inside your View Options, make sure that there is a check mark by status. I recommend that you have the rank, the workflow actions, the task grouping, the approvers, and the status all check marked. We can see here that Information System Description has 4 different approvers that can approve this specific task. It could be an AO, a DAO, the DAO representative, or an ISM. Let's see what happens when we take Information System Description and we submit it for approval. I'm going to change my role so that I am not one of these approvers. I'm going to change it over to be an ISI. As an ISI, I'm going to go into Information System Description and I'm just going to go to the bottom where it says Finish Task. I am now going to submit this task for approval. As the ISI, I am going to now submit this for approval. And let's see what happens to our status when we do this. We notice now that Information System Description has now changed. It says it is submitted for approval. Once your task is set for submitted for approval, you will no longer be able to edit any of the process steps contained within. This can be verified simply by clicking on Information System Description and clicking on any of the sub-process steps within here. For instance, we'll click on the Equipment Inventory. Under our Equipment Inventory, we're brought to this page cannot be edited because this task is in a read-only state. Again, because the major task has been submitted for approval, all of the sub-process steps on the left-hand side are now locked. They can no longer be edited. Let's go back out to our major task list again. As you can see under Information System Description, we are now awaiting for one of these 4 roles over here to approve our major task step. And right here, they have 90 days left to approve. If you hover over the 90, it tells you they have days left to approve. It tells you this indicates the number of days left for the current approver to approve the task. We'll change our role over to ISM and we'll approve this task. As the ISM, we'll go back into our Information System Description, choose Finish Task, and we'll be presented with the Approve and Complete this task. We'll authorize and approve this task. And you notice that Information System Description is now gone from our active. We can still see it if we go to Show All. And there's our Information System Description, and it is now complete. And we can see that all or one of these approvers approved this particular process step. One of the questions that we get regularly is who approved this major task? Who approved Information System Description? In order to find that out, I only need to go over here to where the task status indicator is marked as complete. By clicking on the word complete, I'm brought up with the history of the task. As you can see, it was submitted for approval by an ISI, and their name will be populated here. And the approval, or the final approval, was made by an ISM, and their name would be populated here. And it gives you the day and the timestamp of when these things happen. This is a nice feature for you to be able to go and look in and see who has been approving your project, who submitted something for approval, and where is your project at in the approval process. Let's take a look at a different scenario. Underneath Critical Control Implementation, we have 2 separate approval authorities here. The first set is for an ISM, an ISI or PM. So an ISI or PM must approve this first, indicated by the number 1, and then the second approver is the ISM, which is indicated by the number 2. Let's go inside of Critical Control Implementation and submit it for approval as an ISM. Inside Critical Control Implementation, I'm going to click Finish Task, and I'm going to do just like before, submit this task for approval. We notice that Critical Control Implementation has now been changed to Submitted for Approval. We are now awaiting an ISI or a PM to approve this specific major task. And once again, they have 90 days left to approve. I'm going to change my role to be an ISI, and I'm going to go ahead and approve this task. There's more than one way to work in Xacta to approve a task. One way is to go through and go directly back into Critical Control Implementation. Another way is to click on the blue arrow here that says Take Action. When you have the proper roles, you'll be able to take an action against a particular major task step. Another way to do this would be able to click on the My Approvals tab at the top. By clicking on My Approvals tab, I notice that I have the Xacta Tidbits project, the critical control implementation. It was recommended for rejection. For whatever reason, it was recommended to be rejected. But from here, I can take an action against this. Let's go back to our major task list one more time. And we're going to go ahead and approve the critical control implementation. So as an ISI, we're going to go ahead and recommend that we approve this. And we'll click the Save button. We notice now that critical control implementation has changed. It is no longer submitted for approval. It is now in approving. We've moved to approving because one of the two approvers has approved this major task. We are now waiting for the ISM. So our ISI or PM approved the major task. We are now waiting on our ISM. And once again, the ISM has 90 days. The task is in approving status, meaning that we can no longer edit any of the process steps contained within the major task of critical control implementation. Once you've submitted it for approval and it is in the approving process, you can no longer edit any of the any of the process steps within the major task. In order to get this to complete, I'm going to go ahead and change my role back to an ISM. And I'm going to click on my blue arrow here to take an action against it. And I'm going to authorize it or approve it, since the ISM is the final approval for this particular major task. And we notice now critical control implementation has been changed to complete. Sometimes things get a little stuck. As you can see, it still looks like we're waiting for an ISM to do something against this particular project. If you ever get stuck in a position like this where things don't look quite right, you always have the refresh button up here at the top. When you click the refresh button, it refreshes your major task list, and we notice that critical control implementation is gone. It is no longer an active task. We can look at it again by our Show All feature, and we notice that critical control implementation is now complete. Again, if I want to know who did all the approvals for the major task of critical control implementation, I merely need to click the Complete button. Once I click on the word Complete, I see that it was submitted by an ISM. It was recommended for approval by an ISI, and then it was finally approved by the ISM. The names of those individuals will be here listed inside of the task history, along with the dates and timestamps of when everything happened. So that answers a lot of the major questions of what is going on with my project, what am I waiting on, who is approving something, why is it sitting in approval, how long has it been sitting in approval. We can answer all of those questions just by looking at our major status indicators.
By understanding the major task status indicators, you'll be able to know exactly what's going on with your project at any time. Just by understanding whether or not your project is incomplete, active, or even submitted for approval will help you know exactly where your project is going and where it's waiting on things. Thank you again for watching this episode of Xacta Tidbits, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you around the 16th Air Force and the AFIC.
For more great content, make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel to get the latest Xacta tidbits.